Welcome everybody to the Millennial Mrs. Podcast. I am so super duper excited that I have none other than Crystal here with me today. I am super duper excited. Welcome, Crystal, to the Millennial Mrs. Podcast.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you.
Yes, I am super duper excited. As everyone knows, I'm just going to go through it again. I started the Millennial Mrs. Podcast out of an urgent need. I felt like as a millennial, I felt, oh my God, I had a whole plan in life, and then life kicked my plan down the steps. And there was no manual for how you should do this thing. And I felt like if I was going through it, maybe somebody else was going through it and needed some assistance. And I just felt like transparency was key. So I have been on a mission to finding other millennials who are just doing the doggone thing, living unapologetically, intentionally about them and doing great things. So I found Crystal on Instagram and I reached out to her because she bomb, y'all. Like, I'm gonna let her tell y'all about her and her journey. So yes, let's just jump into it, Crystal. Tell me who you are.
Hi, everyone. So, my name is Crys.Antoinette. I am a Maryland native, born and raised. I'm a mom of one. I'm an entrepreneur, and I actually work full time at the same time.
It's the balance for me, like trying to figure out entrepreneurship, momhood, trying to work, make sure you're okay at the same time. It's a balancing act. And I don't think there's ever like an equal balance. I think it's
Mm-mm.
like always, how can I do it? So tell me about how old is your child?
He just turned 15 this month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are a boy mom. I love boy moms. I'm a boy mom. Kudos to all the fun boy moms. Tell me about your business and your journey of entrepreneurship.
Sure. So my business is the Queen Standard LLC, and it is a Christian business which is geared to helping women determine who they are in Christ, heal from some of the traumas and things that we had growing up, and then just be empowered to move forward together in purpose. And so we do little small meetups as well as a big conference every year just to empower women and give them the fuel for the next year.
Now, what made you start that?
Um, 2019, I got a vision from God. And, 2 years before that, I had really changed my life. He had kind of called me out of a relationship with my son's father. And so it was like, well, how do I do this? How do I live for you? How do I change all of this over? Like, all of this is new. And so, because I didn't have that community, I was like, well, there are other people who need it too. There are other people who are going through these big life changes who want to live for Jesus. And it's like, how do we do that practically? Like, we know the Bible, we hear what they say on Sunday, but then on Monday, like when we have
Life
to
is here.
argue and there's fights and there's bills, like what does that look like? And feeling alone, what does that look like? Can you really have kingdom friends that are loving God and wanting to operate in purpose too? And so that made me just create that space for women.
Did you grow up in church?
I did.
Okay, so tell me about that. I know, like, I grew up in church. I was in church. My mom's a preacher, come from a line of preachers. I was probably out churched. Like, it was just always church. I was in church for three services on Sundays. I was in
Girl.
church Wednesday Bible study. I was in church on Fridays for Hood, hooked only on Destiny, the youth ministry. We had activities on Saturdays, and don't let it be we going to a extra service. Bishop was preaching out on the Sunday. We was in church all the time.
Girl. Yes, I remember one of my earliest memories were when they did a 24-hour shut-in. I think I must have been 5, and they were making us fast too. And I was like, oh,
Yes,
hungry.
yes. Everybody fast. I remember like being young, like in the youth ministry, and we were taught to fast as well. Like you're gonna fast something. You don't need to watch be on MySpace.
Right.
We all fasted. And I think that's where like things have shifted. I feel like these kids are totally different than old school church. I took my
Yes.
son to church a couple Sundays ago, and he was asleep. My 5-year-old though, but I was just like, at 5, I still wasn't asleep. I was up.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
definitely different. But did you have any like church friends growing up that you still have that you could like depend on?
No, so for the most part, I lived in Maryland, but I think 3 to 8 years old, we were in Michigan. So when we came back to Maryland, that there was a split between those kids and the kids now. We still keep in touch by like Facebook, but it was different. And then I was in church from fourth grade up here. But what I noticed is once you got to like high school, it was different. It was more of a hangout. They weren't really teaching. So to be honest, once I went to college, like the wheels fell off. Homegirl was finally out of her parents' house. I could wear tight jeans because they wasn't letting me wear no tight jeans. I could wear my shirt is half rolled up. I'm in college. I done found out what a red cup is, and I was a bit of a prodigal. But I think part of that was because they just didn't like it. Church for children was like babysitting.
Mm-hmm.
So once you hit middle school and high school, like if you're not teaching me how to have a relationship, God is someone that my parents know. He's not someone for me. And so when life hit, my parents divorced when I was 17. I'm the oldest of five. That was a hard hit for me. I blamed God. Like, you're allowing me to go through this hurt. Like, he's not talking to us, not just not he's not relating with my mom. He's not talking to us. I'm his daughter. I'm his favorite, right? And so I got angry with God. And so because I didn't have those tools, and neither did my friends, right? Because it was just a hangout on Friday nights for teens or, those kind of situations, I fell away for a long time.
Now that brought up something interesting. When your dad left, how did that impact your relationship with God? Far as like that father relationship.
Well, it was never there to begin with because,
Okay.
again, I was learning it. What I knew about God was from church, but I didn't know him for myself. There were things in my childhood that happened that I think subconsciously I blamed God, but I didn't know him enough to have a conversation. And so when my father essentially broke my heart, it was like, if he doesn't love me, then who will? So now I'm supposed to turn to this perfect God who sees everything I'm doing right now. And he's supposed to love me, but my dad, who like I can touch, I can feel, we have memories, you know what I mean? He abandoned me. So it made it
That's true.
harder for me to come back. Um, because my dad was the image of God, if you will. You know what I mean?
Hmm. That's what I was hitting on. When your natural father is not there and still trying to lean in on your spiritual father,
Mhm.
and it can sometimes cause discrepancies, like, what is this? What is the expectation? I'll say that I've always, known my father, and my parents had me when they were teenagers. And for all intents and purposes, I'm an adult, and at this point, I feel like he gave me the best that he could, flaws and all.
Yeah.
And but I've always felt like I had a good support system of males around me. But it was not until, I'll say, like in my 30s, when I really started to realize, wait, you have a little daddy issues too. And I don't think I acknowledged it because I had godfathers, I had uncles, I had my grandfather who I lived in a house with and called daddy, to this day. So I did not really think, me, that I could have daddy issues. And at 30, in my 30s, it was like, welcome to Daddy Central USA. Like, they exist, and you did not skip this.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an aha moment for me. Um, and a good conversation with God, like what you were saying, like, hold up now. Like, I've been rocking with you. I've been rocking with you, and and this is not what I was expecting, but like, I've been rocking with you. Like, me, like, you gonna do that to me? those are like some real life questions. And I think back in the day, we did not normalize being honest with God and
Yeah.
like where we are. Whereas, like, I'm glad that I had a very good relationship with my mom because my mom was young. I was always able to express honesty with her, and I was always able to say, I don't agree with that. If she told me to do something, I could say, well, why? And I could never be disrespectful, but I could ask those questions. So that has correlated in my relationship with God. Now, hold up now. You said this was how it was going to work, and this ain't how it didn't work. So what's going on here? Do you
Right.
ever have moments like that? Like real moments?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was the breakup. I started going back to church once I had my son and all of that, and he literally was like, you got to go. And I was like, who are you talking to? This is not what I called you to. I didn't call you to shack up and all of that. And I was like, that's not what we hear. Like, we hear that he's just loving and forgiving, but we don't really hear how he begins to challenge those systems and things that you built for yourself, um, that don't really align with him. Not even just, living together out of wedlock, but even how I dealt with my anger. Like, that's not okay. It's not okay to slam a door. It's not okay to leave a house. You know what I mean? How I take care of myself, or the lack of taking care of myself. They don't talk about how God begins to challenge those things when you come to him. It's like, come to Christ and that's it. Like, no, he's still going to make you over. So over time, the more you grow with him, the more you have intimacy and love and trust. Yeah, he comes for those things and says, like, I don't like that. Or that's not you. That's not who I created you to be. So to your point, he challenged my lack of forgiveness for my father. And I was like, who are you challenging? I'm allowed to be angry. I didn't ask to be here. Y'all put me here, and you knew this was going to happen. You allowed it, like you said. And like, so why are you asking me to forgive? I'm the victim.
And the part two of the forgiveness is forgiving when the person not even asking for forgiveness.
Or not even acknowledging that they're wrong.
The hardest pill, I think, is realizing that forgiveness is not for the person. Forgiveness is truly for you. Being able to work through those difficult processes inside of I am hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm working on forgiving you as well. That is uncomfortable. Like I'm just gonna put it out there. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. It's not as easy or glamorized as we put it. You go to church, you shout on Sunday, and all is forgiven. And then on Wednesday, you realize just how pissed off you are and how it just wasn't as simple as standing at the altar crying on Sunday. It's a real life process. So, what did the process of forgiveness look like for you?
So initially, he told me I had to mourn the death of my relationship. He told me stop talking to him.
Okay.
He said, I need you to grieve your father and let it go. And this was at a conference, and I bawled at the altar because even though our connection was toxic, because, shame for them, when someone does you wrong and they love you, especially if the wrong they're doing you is just a byproduct of them living life, they don't mean it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very hard, especially as a parent now, when I make mistakes, to have to own up to the pain that I'm causing my son when I know it's not intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in those moments where we were trying to get to a point of understanding, it was very hard for him to hear me, to hear that I'm hurting and I'm broken because of what you did. And so we would have friction. And so he said, you have to let it go. You have to stop talking to him. And I need you to talk to me. And so there were a lot of angry nights. And that's where I learned, like you said, to have a real conversation. And I'm not going to sit here and praise you if I don't feel like it. Like, I'm angry and I want to know why. I want to know why this was necessary, and having that conversation with God and then doing the work. So enrolling in different master classes about healing, discovering and then just allowing myself, on the nights that my son wasn't with me, vulnerable nights, to cry. So I don't know if there are any other either oldest children or strongest daughters or strongest friends, but a lot of times we're the ones that don't have people to lean on. You'll be okay. You're strong. You'll be all right. And so we don't have that safe place of vulnerability to fall apart. And so what God would do is, on the nights that my son went to his father's house, he would begin to prick my heart, where I could feel emotions starting to rise that I would put away on days where I had my son, because I have to be mom and I don't have the luxury of emoting to come up. And so I would just be, it would be a safe place just to be vulnerable, just to be weak, to be on the floor in the midst of my emotions. And I think that's important, because a lot of times we try to heal without getting the poison out. And that's how you end up with a hard heart.
I would agree. I think that as a mom, crying in the shower can become like a real safe and real place that it happens. Um, I am the strong friend. I am the one that I I'm sorry. I'm very rarely going to ask for help.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm very rarely going to ask for help. Um, but it's in those moments where I'm broken and I find myself texting and checking on somebody else that I'm like, hold up. I need to send myself a text message, because I'm like going through this. And I think the other thing is, for me, I grew up in a church where I could not be 100% vulnerable. I could not be 100% authentic with me hurting or me going through something. I think, and not at any fault or blaming anybody, but definitely, and that took maturity and growth. But I think it came down to a place of, you have to be able to feel safe to open up and to release those very real feelings. And if you can't, you got to be able to be honest with yourself and get yourself into a place where you can, because you can't heal in a place where you're not even being honest with yourself, let alone being honest with those that are around you. I
Right.
don't think that God created us to suffer in silence. I don't think He created us to be in silos. When I dealt with postpartum, I remember that was probably like the most loneliest time of my life. And even after that, I've dealt with bouts of depression or sadness. But I often like would feel ashamed and like not wanting to tell anybody, wanting to be that strong person. And I just talking to like different people, realizing that it's a lot more people going through things than what we see on social media, what we see talked about. And that's really why we're here, to bring awareness to it and to say, listen, this is a very real feeling. You're not alone. We have a lot of people checking out of here, committing suicide because it's too much for them. So just normalizing, check on your strong friends. And for the strong friends, you don't always have to be the strong one.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't. And I don't know what that looks like, because I'm working on it myself. You have some advice for us, strong?
Yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable. Like, vulnerability is uncomfortable. I think the first thing is praying, because people can have good intentions and want to be there, but that doesn't mean they have the capacity to carry you. Everybody does
That.
not.
I like that. They
They
may
just,
not have the capacity to carry you.
so they could love you for real, but they just don't have the capacity for that. And then I think the other thing is, when you recognize it, being okay with putting that boundary up. So, there have been friends, my grandfather died last year, and it was out of the blue. They couldn't carry that. You know what I mean? How are you doing today? being willing to say, I'm not doing good. And then depending on the response, that will tell you if that is the place that you can go to or not. So if they say, if they cut it off quickly, then that may not be the place. And again, it's not that they don't love you, they just don't have the capacity. But you have to be willing to show up and not say, I'm good. It starts just there. How are you doing today? And I learned to pause. And then depending on who I'm talking to, I will say, okay, I'm pausing. Like, who is this person? How close are we? Do I feel like, and you can throw a feeler out that's like a medium, like, this was a really rough week. I was just thinking about my grandfather, or this is a really rough week, postpartum. I'm not feeling like myself today. And then allow them to answer. And then depending on their answer, that helps you to gauge, where you are and if they're the right person for you. But being willing to go first, and I think that's really hard when you're hurt or when you're the strong one, is going first. You have to open the door for other people to walk in. You have to extend your hand so that you can get a hug.
Two things just came from that. Number one, I am the finding yourself queen. Like, how you doing? Finding yourself. Before it's like second nature. I'm not even like thinking about it. But the other part is feeling as if you are enough and you deserve to take that break. You deserve to not be the strong one all the time. You deserve a break and for somebody to cater to you. Like, it is okay. It is okay. I love what you talked about, boundaries. I am in a season of creating new boundaries and doing so not with an attitude, right? Like, I think when you assess relationships and you realize that you teach people how to treat you. And when the relationships are not gelling the way that you needed to gel and it's compromising your mental health, and you begin to shift and create boundaries. Everybody is not always okay with that. Tell me about your experience with the boundaries, because it's a work in progress. I'm working on it. So tell me, give me some tips, girl. What you doing over there with the boundaries?
So for me, it's the opposite. So I would say, as a kid who, again, is the oldest and had a lot of responsibility along with my traumas, my response is flight. So it's very easy for me to shut down and cut you off. It's the letting you stay.
I love the cutoffs. That's where I came from. That's deep down in my blood.
Yes.
I come from a long line of family members that just do the cutoffs. And I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to do things differently. That's why I said creating boundaries that don't necessarily mean that we can't be in relation. It just shifts what that looks like. And I think that goes for like relationships across the board, right? So like friendships and family members, looking at what works for you and saying, this is who I used to be in your life, and this is who you have been in my life. And in this season of my life, I need something different. And I don't know if you were supposed to have a conversation. I don't know. I think I just been like shifting. I think people be like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm not mad. We good. I'm just
I think it depends on the situation. Especially family wise, I had to have a conversation. Like, I'm not the mediator for everyone. And so I'm willing to speak to my siblings as their sister, but I'm not willing to speak to them as like their pseudo parent anymore. Respectfully, I love you.
Add that.
That's not my job. And so I would have to reinforce that, like, hey, okay, like, yeah, I can talk to them, I understand, but like, I'm gonna advise them as their sister. And then I think with friendships, it depends on what. I think if you're cutting someone completely off, then that warrants a conversation. Or if you're going from extreme of talking to every day to like once a week. I think that warrants a conversation, because in the same way that we have been on the other end of other people's, our fathers' decisions and how they have affected us, it's our responsibility, if we do love our friends, family members, to not put them in those same positions, because it does cause rejection. It causes insecurity, and we ought to love them like we love ourselves. And so how I want to be loved is, give me the option. I want the power back to make a decision for myself. I don't want to be at the whim of someone else. And so if you feel like this is a season where, I got a lot going on in my family, or I'm a new mom and I'm doing this, or I got a new job and I really need to focus, so we may not be able to talk as much, just say that. Just be honest and upfront. But I think a lot of times we don't have the conversation, and then when the bridges burn later, it's harder to come back. All bridges don't need to be broken. Some of them just need to be used a little less. And so sometimes it could be like you said, where we talked every day, and maybe I only call you twice a week now, because I can't give you as much time, or because I can't share certain things in my life that are happening every day, or maybe it's not going there. Where I used to tell you every detail of my life, right? Especially as younger adults going into the 30s, I can't share everything anymore. So I have to pick and choose who gets what, because you have that capacity for me. So I may share more of my intimate life, or, dating or marriage with a mentor, than I do with a friend, because you have so many years, you have that experience and, wisdom, versus my good girlfriend who's at the same place that I am, learning just as much as I am.
I like that. You just now said something. I am very, very big on connecting with mentors. Me personally, I've always hung around people that are older than me. And partially because my mom was a young mom and I hung around her and her friends. And so I never felt like I'm the same age as the people that's my age. I felt like I'm with the adults. But in turn, some of my closest friends have always been older than me. And I'm forever grateful, because I think the conversation is different. I think that the advice is different. It's more so of like, oh, baby, I done gone through this. Like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, there's light at the end of this tunnel versus, and that's not a shot to those that are on the same level as you. But if we're going through the same thing, we winging it together. You winging it, I'm winging it.
Right.
We both out here winging it. So like, we gonna need somebody that traveled this road that can say it's gonna be light at the end of the next light. Get to the next light, make a right, and you're gonna be able to see clear. So I do think that's good. Getting mentors. And I also think that is a part of our responsibility, right? To be able to provide that type of support for those that are coming after us. To give that mentorship to them, to say, hey, it's not always easy. Transitioning after having a baby and transitioning out of a relationship as you had is not always easy. Transitioning and navigating marriage is not always easy. And whatever facade that has been created that it is, let's just go ahead and break that. Let's shatter that glass. It don't exist.
Yes.
We normalizing communicating and talking. So from you starting your business, tell me about that impact and what that has meant to you personally, and what has that done for you personally?
The impact has definitely been in Maryland. Just seeing other women breathe, if you will, when they recognize, like, I don't have to put the mask on. Like, she's really like, this is a place for me to be vulnerable. And in some of our smaller activities where they have felt comfortable enough, just bearing some of the things that they've been ashamed about, guilt that they've had, has just been just so empowering to me. Because again, that's what I did not have. So to be able to facilitate that for someone else is amazing. But also it's been freeing for me, because as leaders, we have to go first. And so it has been a challenge for me to show up sometimes with women I don't know, and to say, here I am. Like, here's
And
my
here I am a
con.
little broken.
Yes. Here are things that I've regret. Here are the ways that I've looked at myself and the things that I'm having to work on. But then when they turn around and say, you know what, me too, like that's the best feeling in the world.
I would agree. I would agree. I definitely I love that. I'm super excited about your conference. Let's talk about the conference. I'm excited. I'm going to be there. I'm like looking for my sparkly dress. I'm going to be
Yes.
there. So tell me about the conference. What can we expect at the conference? What's happening? I'm excited.
Yes, so the conference is the Queen Standard Conference. It is October 11th and 12th of this year. The 11th is our first gala this year. And so we're going to give away 2 grants to small minority business women to help them get started. It's literally for people who have only been in business max 5 years, because we want to look after those who are smaller, who can feel unseen, who don't have the views and the likes to get the funding or the publicity of the larger businesses. We do have a poet on lock. We have a DJ. So it's going to be a really fun night. Yes, videographer, photographer. So it is going to be beautiful. And it's the theme is gilded and glitter. So we just want the women to shine and to feel beautiful and to get dolled up in a way we normally don't get to, especially as boy moms. I don't know if anybody else, I'm normally in t-shirts and a ponytail, so just a time for us to feel beautiful. And then on Saturday is the full day conference. We will have vendors, a silent auction, and then we're just going to talk about the tenets of being bold, being brave, and just empowering ourselves to feel and be beautiful.
I
So
love
there,
that.
yes,
I think as women, we have to empower each other more often to be bold. And oftentimes we see people and we're like, oh, she's doing too much. She's doing the most. She's like growing up. That was what I was plagued with. She's so extra. She's this, she's that. And I think I kind of tried to dim the light at some point. Like I think the attention just became too much. But in real life, I'm in a season of we're bold, we're being intentional, like unapologetically. I'm showing
yes,
whether or not you like it or not. I'm here. You don't like it, go home.
right.
So I am super duper excited. Where can people get their tickets? What's the deadline for tickets? What's the information?
Sure. So you can visit thequeenstandard.com. We are in early bird until August. So please get your tickets. First come, first serve for the tickets. And then outside of that, we are looking for vendors as well. So if you are in the Maryland area and you want to come through, and then also just have a place to sell your items and to have influence over other queens who are trying to become better and to launch out, feel free as well.
I love that. I love that. Like I said, I'm coming. I want to be in the mix.
Yes.
You also have a journal. How can people get to the journal?
Yeah, so I have a journal and a book. So the journal is a prayer journal just to make it a little easier to have that time with God. So the journal is on Etsy, and it just gives you some pages. You can do it digitally or print it out where you have me time, where you can write scriptures. And then there is actually a page for you to write to God. I think that is so important to kind of bring him down to like earth touchable, is just having a dialogue and just saying, hey, God, how are you? This is where I am today. And so it's just a tool to kind of help you ramp up on your intimacy in your day-to-day conversations with God. And what I have found with my ladies is the more that you journal your relationship and your conversations, you begin to kind of get an idea of where he's taking you and what's going on. Or the hindsight, like, oh, he was actually preparing me for this thing I was about to go to, because here's a song, like the songs that he was playing or having me play, or the scriptures that were coming in the sermons that particular month are a direct reflection of what I was about to go through. So he was preparing me, like he sees me,
I love
things like
that.
that. Yes. And then the book is called A Daughter's Keeper. So the 30th was the 3rd-year anniversary, and it is a book to help women, regardless of their relationship with their father, to develop a better relationship with God. And so
I
there's
love
a
that.
prayer and a practical step at the end of every chapter so that you can actually do it.
That's the part that I really like about it. I think we as Christians, we sometimes get plagued with just pray, just go to God, just get saved, just go to church. And it's like sometimes people are like, no, practically, what do I have to do? And so giving practical responses of a step by step what to do, I love. Let's just simplify this as much as
Yes.
possible. This is not rocket science.
Yes.
Trying to win souls, not not make you go through a marathon, okay?
Right.
So I love that. I love that. So tell me about how has it been being a millennial, honoring your Christian values and dating, maneuvering, being a mom, and what that looks like for you preparing and waiting for your husband and all those types of things.
It's very different. Dating now in my late 30s is different than what it looked like in our early 20s. My space, all of that, like, especially after COVID, it's just a totally different world. People aren't, they're just coming back outside, but the online community is so heavy. But that doesn't always work. And so I think the biggest thing is being okay with being set apart. And so my journey has been pretty quiet because he's like, that's the thing. When you make God your father, mm, no, like, can we just be phone friends for a little bit? He's like, no, I already know. Like, no. And so being willing to yield to that when everybody's doing the brunches and the speed dating, and he tells you no, like, not because he's being mean, but because he's trying to save your heart. And I think that's one of the bigger things. Like when we talk about experiences, everybody wants you to go and do these things, but they're not talking about how they're on the floor later because the person lied, or they're talking to somebody else, or they said they were this person on the profile and then they met him in real life and it's not what it was. Like part of that is waiting. If I really wanted God's way, I have to wait God's way. And sometimes the wait is
That's
weighty.
fine. And I say that from a person that um hindsight is always 2020, right? If you could go back and you could go back and you could change things, hindsight would have been like totally different. You would have done
Mm-hmm.
things God way. You would have you especially when you know you heard the you know you heard the and you heard the like not right now. And it's like, but I can make it and figure it
Yeah.
out. And it'd be like, then when it fall apart, you'd be like, but I know you said it was gonna fall apart, but why you let it fall apart? Because you
Right.
have to let it fall apart. You are all powerful. You could have made this thing amazing.
Right.
Why didn't you just make it amazing? I mean, I
Right.
told me that it was gonna fall apart. I didn't listen. I didn't, but
It's like the girl Ariel from IG. I always have those I'm gonna see for myself moments, and it's like I don't want to see for myself.
yeah, that's me. I'm the one. I want to get burned, and then when I get burned, I'll be like, "Well, why you do that? Like, why we
Yeah.
have to do that? Because I know that you could have like prevented it. So, like, I know you told me it was going to happen, but you knew me, like you know me, and you knew I was going to do it anyway. So
Yes.
it's like having those real, very real have conversations. I talk to God like he's sitting right here. Like we have very real conversations. Like, listen, we're very real. This, nope, nope. You knew I
Yes.
wasn't going to listen, and not that we set out to do that, right? I think that that takes maturity. What you're
Mm-hmm.
suggesting takes um, spiritual maturity, um, and it's not always comfortable. It's not always fun, but God doesn't do it because he's mad at us. He does it because
Right.
he wants to save us. And a lot of times, especially when it has something to do with somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
um, God can see what that other person is going through that we can't see.
Yeah.
So it's not always just saving us. Sometimes it's saving them. It's like we got to trust the process, even when we don't understand it. And I'm like, I want to know all the details. I'm the one that want to know who all over there before I come.
Right. You say I have faith. Okay, but like what am I having faith in exactly? Like how many years is we talking about? Like, and that's the part I think as a millennial, in the last, 6 to 7 years, there's been this big boom of like prepare for Christian marriage, but nobody talks about the wait. Like just because you prepare or you go through a master class, that doesn't mean he's coming in 2 months. It could be years. Nobody talks about like waiting for God could be years.
And what do
What do
you
you
do while you're
do?
waiting? Because those
I
days,
be like, God, I got an itch sometimes. Amen. I'm abstinent, but like help me,
speak
Holy
on
Spirit.
it, because that's the truth. And we act like that's not a very real thing. And it's
Yes.
like we judge, we as people, we are quick to judge a person's decisions. But the
Mhm.
reality is being alone and, going through the wait process, not just in dating, but in life,
Yes.
waiting for that thing that God has promised you is not always fun. I mean, I'm gonna say the unpopular thing. It's not
Mhm.
ever fun.
Mhm.
If somebody tells you, I'm going to take you to Disney World, and they don't tell you when, you're going to be annoyed every time a Disney
Yep.
World commercial comes on, or you hear somebody talking about Disney World, or you see a freaking Mickey Mouse. You're going to be like, get out of my face.
Or when your friend who's been cutting up got bad grades, all of a sudden get blessed with a trip to Disney World and they don't deserve it.
Speak on it. And you be like, I thought I was your favorite. You playing. You don't
Mm-mm.
see me. I'm doing what's right. I'm me. I'm doing what's right. You told me to do this. I'm
Come
doing
on.
it. She
Come
ain't
on.
even doing it. That part.
That's the real part. You're tithing or you're being full of
Faithful.
integrity. And the other people around you, they're not doing half of that. And you're like, why do they get to go first?
I used to feel like that as a kid. My mom was like very much in church, like super duper holy, very, very much so, like doing the right thing. And I would see like other people like living however, and like they always seemed like that they had more. And it was just like, God, like you playing. Like my mother literally will like give you like her whole check if you said give it to her. Like she wouldn't care about no bill. She would just give it. If you said you sow, she was gonna sow. I remember one time we went to Disney World. The first time I ever went to Disney World, I was in college, by the way. Like it was not like a kid thing. But when
Mm-hmm.
we went to Disney World, for the first time, we went to this, we had drove with my godparents, and we stopped and we went to this church service, and my mom is a sower. My mom will sow seed, period. And we were on our way to Disney World. And I remember before we went in there, before we went into the church, I said, do I need to hold the money? Because you're not about to sow out Disney World money. You're just not. Like, I know you. God be done got to talking to you. And this is my first time. And I was in college, but I was like, this is my first time going to Disney World. Don't let the Lord get to talking to you in here about sowing all of our good Disney money into
That
church.
is funny.
But it's like very real. Like I did not understand it. And now that I'm on like the side of where I am, and I see like how God blesses my mom abundantly above all. And like now that I'm on the side of always sowing, I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, now I'm one of them old church ladies that's gonna sow. I'm gonna do the thing, I'm gonna listen to God, and it's gonna work out. But I'm a firm believer that in that obedience, God shows up. He shows up. I'm gonna
I
keep trusting it.
no, I agree. And I think we have to be real also about what we're asking for. So a lot of times we're like, we want your big idea, God. Well, that means it takes my big instructions, my big discipline, my big boundaries to get my thing. So we can get the good thing by compromising or not doing. Like you know what I mean? Like your mother could have still been blessed, but would she have been blessed to the degree that she was if she hadn't been obedient? You know what I mean? Whatever you're doing, would you have been blessed to the degree you are, or whatever favor or peace that you have if you weren't obedient? And so I think, the other part about following God is he is a good father. He's going to allow us to decide what we want to decide. But if we really want the best, then we have to do the requirements to get there. We do it for jobs. why do we feel like it's any different? So, you know, when we are ready to apply for a job, we read the requirements, we retailer our, you know, resumes to sound right, we get ready for the interviews, we show up as our best selves, we do all the things to get there. Like, to have God's best is going to be the same thing. And it's not, everybody's not going to come with us.
And
And
if
that's
you think about it,
okay.
everybody's not gonna come with you. And we do it for these jobs that sometimes they're like, I'm gonna promote you one day. We don't know. We look up and we're still there, still not promoted or overlooked, underpaid, overqualified, and we stay committed. So what's the difference? I agree. We definitely have to shift that. I think that there is power in the wait. And I think that we have to normalize the wait. We live in a society like the microwave society. Like, oh, I don't like my job. I'm gonna start my own business. I'm not working for anybody. I don't want to work for anybody. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. When I started my business, TLW Consulting, it started from me working with young people. I had worked in workforce development for over 10 years. And I kept coming in contact with people like, I don't want to work for anybody. But young people specifically would be like, I'm not working for anybody. I don't want nobody to tell me what to do. And like, I had to have like a real heart to heart conversation of like, just because you're an entrepreneur does not mean that you don't report to anybody. Like, as an entrepreneur, it's actually harder because as an employee, you're reporting to one person. As an entrepreneur, you are reporting to your audience. So if that's your customer, like that's everybody. You have to report, like, period. You have to show up. So, like, let's just take that out of the narrative that it does not exist. It does. There's rules to this thing. We all have to show up as our best selves. And like I said, it's power in the wait. We just have to appreciate it. And I just, I mean, I love your journey that I see. I think that you should keep doing what you're doing, keep inspiring, keep doing it, keep following and listening to God, even in the wait. I'll be praying for you, praying for your husband as he is getting ready when the Lord is working on him to bring him your way. But yes, I think you're a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul, beautiful person. And so publicly, I love to give those accolades because it's so not normalized with women. And so I just want to publicly give you some praise and kudos for what you're doing for other women because it's so necessary. It is so necessary. And I know that it's not always easy to show up for others when you may be going through your own thing. So just want to give you that positive feedback. Super excited about your conference. I'm going to be there. I'll be supporting everybody else that's watching. Please, please, please go and support her. Follow her on Instagram. Follow her everywhere. I'll have everything tagged in the description for this video. So go, like, subscribe, share, all the things, do all the things that she got going on. Go follow her. We want to get everybody following Christ, doing the right thing. That's what this is about. It's not about me, it's about us. I like to say, for me personally, I don't do it for me. The biggest sign of success for me is the impact that I leave. That's what the real legacy is about. So I see that you are creating an amazing legacy for your son, for, you know, future children and everything else that you have to come. So major kudos and thank you so much for joining me on the Millennial Mrs. podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for tuning in this evening to the Millennial Mrs. Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, write in the comments, give us some feedback on what y'all thought. We'd love to hear it. Thank you. And until the next time, I'll see you on the Millennial Mrs. Podcast.